and also Gibbons Lecture Fund, School of Computer Science at University of Auckland, and Auckland ICT Graduate School. My name is Yun-Sing Ko, and I'm a professor at the School of Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence. And it is with great excitement and pleasure that I'm introducing today's speaker, Associate Professor Kathryn MacCallum. She has a very long list of accolades, and today I was doing some research, and I ended up I thought I'll spend about 30 minutes looking at her bio, and I spent about 2 hours looking at all her stuff. It was amazing. So this is a list of a very short list that doesn't do her any justice at all, but I'm going to try to summarize it. So Associate Professor MacCallum is from the Digital Education Futures within the School of Education Studies and Leadership at the University of Canterbury, and has, over the years, established a strong research background focusing on integration of digital tools into curriculum both in pre-K-12, K-12, and tertiary contexts. She has led and been involved in a number of research projects exploring the roles of technology, and more recently using AR and VR to support learners. So today's talk was looking at her talk today and looking at how the talk is beyond the computer lab, why AI literacy matters for everyone, and that's very close to my heart. I am sure everybody will get something out of this and will be totally inspiring for all of us. With that in mind, let's welcome Associate Professor MacCallum.
Great, just change that over. Kia ora, and thank you for inviting me to talk to everyone. First of all, I'm not an AI expert, so I'm feeling very awed, I suppose, of the calibre in this room and in meeting, someone that is in this space. So as my introduction mentioned, I'm in the education space, so I'm in the Faculty of Education, but I do have a background in IT, but not in AI. But my area of research is around digital technologies and especially emerging technologies and how this shifts education. So I've just completed some research around how AR and VR can be used to support educational purposes and creating these experiences to engage them in their learning. So a lot of my research is with schools, but equally looking at it across the tertiary space as well. So my PhD thesis and my area of background is also in mobile learning. So I've got a lot of engagement around how technology works, but equally with this lens of how do we use it properly. So technology is a tool, but it's not the silver bullet to things. And so, especially in my space of digital education, we hear a lot of the rhetoric is around technology being, the saver education. It's going to change everything. We get, especially in the AI space, we get the pro people that are going to say, okay, this is the greatest thing. We need to engage. We need to embrace those type of words. And then we get the people that are probably a little bit less engaged, a little bit more hesitant, a little bit more worried. And equally, both of them have valid concerns and opportunities and, thinking about what the possibilities in the space, or equally, what are the weaknesses. And what my research is trying to do is bring it together and say, yes, both camps have legitimate concerns, legitimately elements that we can think about. And what we need to do is bring to AI a critical lens. We need to think about it as something that we need to engage in, definitely, because AI is pervasive, it's out there already, but equally it's something that everyone needs to engage. And so this is the topic of my presentation, is this idea that AI doesn't just sit in the computer science space. We don't need to be these experts to be able to, engage in AI, because this is a lot of the time when I talk to teachers especially, I say, are you using AI? How are you students using it? It's like, not too sure, I don't understand it. And my response is that, if I can understand it, everyone can. I mean, that's been flippant. But you don't need to be developing the systems to be able to use these tools effectively, to be able to not have AI done to you, you wield it. And so it is something that everyone needs, and it doesn't sit in the computer science, it's pervasive across. It's equally something that we can start engaging our young children with because they are engaging with AI, and equally our older people as well. So that's the framing. So I'm going to start, first of all, with a little bit of background, a little bit of context. And so as you're all pretty sitting here, you know that AI is not a new thing. Yes, we are talking about it increasingly, but it's not a new thing. AI has been around a very long time. But what's happened with generative AI, it's more explicit. It's more in your face. You know you're using it because ChatGPT says you're using it. You get it in your Google search engine. You get that AI overview. It's more explicit. And so with some studies looking at how we're using it in work, education and home, we're seeing that AI is becoming more pervasive. So in a study by Melbourne University of 47 countries, they saw that there's been an increase of employees in their work intentionally using AI, and many of them are using it daily. So this is an increase that we've seen over the period of ChatGPT coming through. And most employees can see that this has a benefit. There's productivity benefits. This is how they're using it to improve their processes. But what we're also seeing from that survey is that people are using it in positive and less positive ways, so more risky engagements. And so we're seeing where there is a increased use of AI in risky manner, like uploading it, sensitive information, using the information without vetting it, hiding their use. And this is something that we also see when we start looking at surveys of students. So because we are starting to think, we are focused on the use of AI in education, and we have quite a diverse engagement in the space. Generally, when you're talking about AI in schools or tertiary spaces, you get the positive, but equally the negative. You're thinking about academic misconduct, and what's happening is students are hiding it. And this is actually something I've identified in a survey of tertiary students in New Zealand. So not a huge sample, but 355 students. A lot of my results were very much echoed in a bigger study in Australia of 8,000 students, where we're seeing that AI is becoming more used in the educational space, in tertiary space. So they're using a very wide range of tools, but what we're seeing is specifically large language models becoming quite largely adopted. So nearly 90% of students had used generative AI in some shape and form of large language models like ChatGPT, Gemini. And while the adoption of that were quite mixed, the majority were using it sometimes. So it's only 36 because there was quite a spread of uses, but you get 28% are using it every day. So you get quite a broad range of people using it and not using it as much as others. But what we're seeing also in the study is that students have a positive outlook when it comes to AI. They believe it's going to help them with education. But also in the study, we also saw that there were concerns. And students, one of their biggest concerns was the potential, if they were using these tools, to be accused of academic misconduct. And so people were starting to get worried about, if they use it, what does that mean for my education? Am I using it right? What about overuse? And so what we saw in the study is that there was a balanced look. So students weren't overly positive about it or overly negative. They could see the nuance in this space. And mainly because they were a little bit worried about how their lecturers were engaging with them. A lot of lecturers that they were talked in the study was banning the use of the technology, and they couldn't use it. In general practice and general use, there's been lots of studies. This one came out, sorry, there's a typo, in an article in Business Harvard Review. There was a researcher that looked at use cases of generative AI. So not a scientific study. So what he did was he looked at examples that he found online of articles and discussion forums and identified the top uses of generative AI. And so in the study, they identified some probably use cases that you might be doing with technology at home. So at the moment, I'm currently going away on holiday, and I'm using it to create an itinerary. So that was one of the top use cases that he identified. A work buddy, we've already looked at inside the work bit. Creating summaries of meetings, preparing for interviews, enhancing their learning were some top cases of use when it came to generative AI. But equally, there were some risky uses. And so one of the top uses that were highlighted in the study was using generative AI as a therapist or a companion. And so if you're looking at the news at the moment, there is a lot of concern around, especially young people, looking at generative AI and chatbots in a companion, a friend, someone to talk to, someone to help them with in this space. And so if we're starting to adopt this concept when we're looking at chatbots, what is the implications? When we're framing these tools as a companion, when we're framing it as a search tool, as another example. So I've already given the example of the search engine. So Google, first thing you see when you open up and you type in a search is this AI overview. And what that is doing is identifying, a summary of what those other, body of links at the bottom is. But equally, it's not as accurate. We need to be critical of that. It's because it's just giving you a summary of what it thinks you want to see. So we need to look at that and say, okay, that's a starting point. So there's a really good author that I follow that talks about, the idea of a search engine wasn't to give you a solution. It was helping you with finding that solution. So that's when you, especially as teachers, we built up critical literacies of information searching. How do you vet information? So a lot of the time when we're looking at search results and you're looking at articles, you're looking at who wrote it. When was it published? What did they publish on? When it comes to you as a summary, how do you find this information? So those type of things, though, painted as a good use case, there are implications. And so this is why we need to start thinking about AI and problematize it. So it's trying to identify what are the good and what are the bad. Because when we're looking at surveys of common use, there are some good practices, writing communication, helping you smooth your writing. I use it all the time to do that. But equally, we're also starting to use it for searching. So other uses that maybe wasn't initially designed for. So less appropriate. And so this is where AI literacy sits in. So AI literacy, like the concept of AI, it's not that new. So 2016, it was starting to be used. And one of the earlier uses is Kanishi, where they defined AI literacy as this ability to recognize tasks that can be performed by AI, but equally where human strengths can't be replaced by AI. So a nice balanced view in terms of what AI is. It's about identifying where it sits, how it's used, but equally where it shouldn't sit. And so the further definitions of AI literacy is thinking about the techniques and concepts behind the AI products to be able to utilize them. And that's some of the definitions that we see in the space. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more around AI literacy and what I define AI literacy to be a little bit later. But because I'm a teacher and because I'm from the education faculty, I've got your quiz. I know it's late, but I'm going to test your AI literacy, okay? So I've got 3 questions. And you don't have to respond, you don't have to give me your answers, but if you want to, feel free to call out your answers. So 3 questions to check your AI literacy. And one of the foundations of AI literacy is identifying, is it AI? So a lot of the time when we are engaging with this big AI bubble, okay, we've got, fridges that are AI. We've got TVs that are AI. So it's become this buzzword, this hype word. So equally, we need to understand what AI is and when we're using it and what AI isn't. So this is a quick quiz to see if you can spot the AI. So first example, is this photo AI or is it a human photo? Did someone actually, are these human people or AI figures? Well done, you spotted that pretty quick. I did this quiz a couple of weeks ago and it was a bit mixed, so I'm impressed by your literacy so far. Yes. Oops, actually, just before I click off. So this is an AI photo, and obviously you can see that it was posted on Instagram by the National Party. And as you can see, all right, it's not a real photo. I can see that, but other people can't. There is nowhere in there that said that that was AI. So they didn't disclose that. And if you start to follow politics, especially around the use of fake images, it's though using a photo of a nurse and a midwife to demonstrate or capture the focus of your post seems innocuous, but what it's doing is undermining some of the integrity that we have, especially if you don't say it's AI. So it starts to undermine trust because we start to doubt when we do see real and when we see fake. And if you're following, politics at the moment, it's been used in the Australian recent elections where fake videos were created. It's been also to seed doubt. So this is one of the photos that were published online by Kamala Harris around her supporters, and it was claimed that this was fake, it wasn't real, but it was real. So it's starting to seed this distrust. It's harder for us to discern, and especially for voters, it's the manipulation that's coming through, and it's becoming weaponized to seed doubt. And so now you can understand why, especially younger people are starting to question things. And the next example is another example of, is it AI or is it not? So, yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Excuse my ignorance, but how do you know that that's an AI photo? Is there something we should be looking for, or how? Yeah.
Fascinating question, and actually something I'll come to when we talk about AI writing especially. But yes, how do you know it's fake? I had this lovely meme sent to me recently where it was a, can you spot this was AI generated? And so when you see it, it's this lady as a waitress. And so you see the image and it sort of circles little distinct things. It's like, oh, it's blurry here. Oh, you can see that some of the skin is distorted. And then you scroll down the image and she has feet for hands. So you're sitting there examining. It's like, is that AI? How do I tell? And then you look at it and go, oh, yes, too many hands. So... That's a good point, yes. Yeah, so, I mean, I'll turn this over to you because I'm a good teacher. What made you think this was an AI? So there was the lightning, the backgrounds being filtered.
The background plus the filter of the image. So if they had made it more brighter, because color doesn't match. But that could have just been Photoshop.
Yeah, good. And that's actually what other people have said when they said, oh, it's real. It's just really badly photoshopped. It's that, that influencer trend, that really picture perfect skin.
To be fair, did they prove that it was AI, or did they just, because I can look and see that the stethoscope looks ridiculous, but usually I'm looking for extra fingers.
Yes, exactly.
Usually it's more obvious than that, though.
Yeah.
And if it couldn't be Photoshop, in terms of lighting and things like that. Yeah.
Yes. So you're right. I mean, it's incredibly hard to identify this. And I mean, actually, there are sometimes telltale elements that you go, oh, no, that's not real. That cute photo of that elephant with a baby cub in its trunk. Those extreme, very easy to tell. Though, having said that, if you look at those being pasted on Facebook and people, oh, that's so cute, that's amazing, oh, it's so cute. I was like, no, it's fake. So people can't discern, and it's really hard to do. I mean, there's nothing there that tells me that it's fake other than they admitted it. So if you do go to, I don't have, the slides can be shared. Sorry, I should have actually done the references a little bit better. I thought I was sharing them, but I haven't thought about that. But that Stuff article talks about that National Party did come out and admit that this photo was fake. Good question, thank you. Yes. Good question. I mean, it doesn't matter that you have a real photo and then just added Photoshop, distorted. Where's that line? Where's that balance? I mean, I think the key thing here is that they didn't tell me. So, I mean, even if in Facebook and Instagram, you get into this trend where if people have overly Photoshopped, so generally with AI for Photoshopping, and it identifies it as AI. So we're starting to try and help people discern when it's not true. So that's the point, and is about when is it true, when is it false, and it's harder to tell. And I totally agree with you. It's really hard to tell. And that's why you get that type of photo and people go, oh, it's fake. Okay? Because what really tells you that it's real? Other than, yes, it is real. So it's that mistrust that you're setting. So you can use it to manipulate when it's true and when it's false. That's politics for you. Okay. I love the engagement. Next question, all right, is this AI or is this human written? So just to give you some context, it's a New Zealand Herald editorial published on the 20th of July, obviously about All Blacks. I don't know too much about rugby, so I think it's about a new player. Have a read and tell me if it's AI or it's human. Oh, you've got some early votes. What made you think it's AI? Whoever's...
Because the wordings they have used, firstly, fosters. Fosters comes in AI rather than if you build fosters like has grow. Maybe there is other alternative word which can specify instead of foster.
Good. Anyone else?
Sounds like they're vomiting a thesaurus.
Yes. All right, I'm going to tell you the answer. Yes, it is. Because yes, AI wax lyrical. It loves words. It's got, it's those, some of the, where is it? So good effect. So under the head coach, ambition has been crystal clear to forge a team. Da, 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 da. Whoa. Yes.
How can you tell this apart from someone with really bad writing?
Good question. So is it just bad? Is it just lyrical? Remember that AI is based on human writing. That's how it's trained. So it's looked at billions of examples, and it comes out with what it says is AI, human writing. It's looked at and emulates us. And so trying to discern when it's AI or human is impossible to a certain degree, because it is created by AI based on our writing. And I'm going to come back to that point later because I've got another slide. But it is hard to discern. Yes, you can pick up some words and you go, oh, that sounds AI. Yeah, but equally, we don't know.
Can I just
Yes.
from an I'm in a high school from an education
Yeah.
we've got very literate students. I don't tell them, but one of the things that we look for or notice straight away with AI is it'll use that long dash, which you can see after crystal clear.
Yeah.
Once students are onto that, they'll just put these out, but AI will always generate
I use that all the time.
I know.
Even before AI.
And in fact, sometimes with Word, it does it for you. It makes it longer. So if you are typing and you do the dash and then you carry on typing, it will sometimes change to that elongated. So, I mean, that's the problem when we are starting to look at AI writing. And I've just got one more anecdote to tell you. So I've got a child that is 11 years old. And so on the weekend, I talked to him and said, are you using ChatGPT? Or, do you know about this? And he said, yes, I am doing my science badge. So if you know anything about education, science badges are extra learning. And my child has ADHD and dyslexia. So anything extra that he's doing and learning is amazing. And he says, oh, yes, I'm using ChatGPT. I get the answer from ChatGPT, I copy it and paste it, and I change the words so I got a few spelling mistakes. I was like, okay. So he's a savvy 11-year-old. And if you're thinking about, tertiary, high school, if my 11-year-old can work out how to manipulate it so it doesn't look AI, what are we doing? Happiest side of the story is that when I started to talk to him a little bit about his science badge, because he's doing bio, sorry, I should remember what he was saying. He was telling me all about it. So obviously he wasn't just cut and pasting. He was quite engaged. And so he was telling me about rats being in, how they first came to New Zealand and, that this is why, we're more worried about our environment. So, he is actually learning. And so that's one critical thing to think about when we're talking about AI is that you can still learn with AI. And I'll come back to that point later as well. But yes, well done for spotting it. It was an editorial. It was also highlighted and admitted as AI. Okay, so there was a Stuff article that came through and said, this was identified, but it wasn't labelled. So when this came out, it said it was written by New Zealand Herald, didn't say by the AI of New Zealand Herald. And so, once again, we're starting to see content, images, words, like an editorial, that has been created by AI, no disclosure. And this is starting to undermine trust. So trust in politics is that first example, but trust in the news. And if we start to use these tools to create content, not vet the information as well, okay, it's the catalyst to start spreading that disinformation, but equally to turn people off these legitimate news sources, as much as you can probably debate that one. Okay, so it's important that we're starting to be more critical about not just what we see, but how we're using it, how we're portraying. Where is the AI in our use? All right, I'm going quite slowly, so I'm going to have to speed up significantly. So I've got one more quiz, and I might cut it in half a little bit. So I've got one more little story for you to share. So I've got Alex. Alex is my example. So I've got a little story about Alex's day. And so in my story, I'd like you to identify how many times Alex used AI. So I'm going to go through this. I'll see how we go. I might have to shorten it a little bit. So So in the morning, it's 6:45 in the morning. Alex's alarm goes off. Not too early, not too late. It's one of those smart alarms that tracks your sleep and waits for the best moment to wake you. Great, hey? So as Alex stretches and picks up his phone, it lights up with a weather alert. Rain expected in the afternoon. Don't forget your umbrella. He wanders into the kitchen, puts on the kettle and says, "Hey Siri, play the news." His smart speaker jumps into life and starts reading the headlines. The traffic, his favourite rugby team, he likes rugby, not me, the new documentary series that sounds really interesting. And as he waits for his kettle to boil, he also scrolls through Instagram and starts seeing ads about those running shoes that he Googled last night. Time to head out for work. So Alex checks his Google Maps for the traffic updates, and it recommends a longer route to work because of roadworks. During the drive, he listens to his Spotify mix, putting him in a great mood. At his desk, Alex opens his inbox. There's no spam. It's just nice and clean. There's a few messages that he quickly responds using suggested replies that he finds in the his app, such like as, "Sounds great, let's catch up soon." And it all helps him speed up his responses. Late in the morning, his team have a meeting, and in the meeting, it gets automatically transcribed and emails are sent out of the summary of what was discussed. Later on at his desk, he creates a report. He uses in the writing app, has some suggestions around how to improve. Things like consider simplifying the sentence, try to use more active voice here. At lunch, Alex scrolling through his countdown app to order some click and collect. His homepage is filled with recommendations of things that he's purchased before or could purchase now. A chat box appears. "Can I help you with anything today?" Later, he's looking at Facebook. A photo pops up of a celebrity in a scandal. He looks at the picture, looks at the photo. That looks a bit odd. Too many fingers. Back at the desk, he is starting to use a new tool to take customer feedback and sorts them into themes. He's also using PowerPoint to create a slide set for his clients the next day. And he's using the designer tool to help him select layout, colour, images, etc. That night, he's on the couch, he's watching Netflix. When he opens up, it says, "Because you watched," and he clicks on that without thinking. Later on, he's getting ready for bed. He has a notification. "You've spent 4 hours on social media today. Want to try a mindful app before you go to sleep?" How many times did you see AI? Was it 16? I did read the whole thing, I decided. 20. Oh, well done. You might have, I looked at, so if you looked at the tool as separate from the action, probably. So, for example, smart speaker, if you counted it as separate versus the news feed, you probably will find that there was a few more in there. 14, well done. Very close. 16 times. So, so what I'm trying to illustrate there is that we generally see AI as ChatGPT, those large language models that we talked about before. We're fairly focused on one type. But as you can see, AI is pervasive. We wake up with it, we go to sleep. I have created an AI course for educators, and it gets advertised on Facebook. And quite funny because I read the comments. I don't know why, I'm masochistic probably. And you see these comments like, "Oh, we should not be teaching AI, and AI is so bad." And you're going, this is probably a course for you. I know it's targeted educators, but I think you need to figure out what AI is. It's quite ironic. You are using Facebook. You probably got this ad through your algorithm. So I think people's awareness of the pervasiveness is important, that we need to understand. And the fact that when we start talking about banning AI, what are you banning? Yes?
Is there a difference between AI and anything related to computer algorithms?
Yes, that could be a question for our AI experts, but I mean, it's quite closely, so when you talk about AI, there is a lot of complexity in there. It's the machine learning in that. And so if there's machine learning, there's an extension of AI. However, AI as a concept is also greatly discussed, and depends on who you're talking to, what does it mean and what does it cover? Because the minute that you've got machine learning, why is it artificial intelligence? What is the intelligence in there? So I'm not going to get into that question because I'm going to hand it over to my AI expert later, because there's a bigger picture underneath there. But equally, thinking about where AI sits is important. But equally, do we always know what is the AI element? Okay, so AI is pervasive. It's a reality. Thinking about your own use, are you aware of AI, or is it an algorithm? Is it machine learning? Are you aware of your AI or your technology use in this space? How often is AI part of your daily life? That's just a reflection question. Okay. All right. So AI is in our social media feeds. It's in our smart devices. It's impacting us over everything. And so what we need to do is have this critical engagement, or we can't just trust what's coming out of these technologies. So, I mean, obviously we've built in trust around our Google Maps directing me on the shortest route. Okay, do we always believe it once we get there and go, how is that the shortest? Okay, but we still follow it. All right, so I mean, that's just one example, but we need to start being critical about what's being provided us, what's being fed to us, and starting to think about how reliable is this information. If you think about how a large language model is created, it's not vetting that information. Nowhere is it vetted. So in terms of what data it collects to create these models, so what it does, it scrapes huge amounts of information to come up with these models, and then it's provided to you without vetting either, because it's just based on what has it seen. So it's read lots and lots of things. I've seen that this is the answer. Nowhere does it actually vet that information. And so when we're starting to use it without thinking about, is it correct, is it true, we have that problem. A friend of mine actually talked about AI being like that old uncle, so he's really, wants to help out, got lots of advice, but when you start talking to him, he's very keen to give you his advice, and when you start pointing out when he's probably not quite correct, he doesn't change. He still will tell you. He's rooted in biases and opinions are there. So she used mansplaining. I won't say that. But it's quite a good analogy, because this is what AI is. It's just giving you its opinions. Yes, it's based on lots of things that it's read, but equally, when you say to ChatGPT, "You are wrong," and it says, "Thank you," it doesn't really care. It's its program. It doesn't, and it's like, "Oh, thank you for telling me. I will change that." It never changes, because it's in this data. Yes, that data will eventually go back into the systems, but it doesn't always, okay? And because it's a drop in the ocean of everything it's read. And this is why you see today, especially in the educational spaces with learning theories, where you're seeing these myths that are coming back. So the learning theories myths, like learning styles, are coming back in. We know that learning styles are a myth. There's no such thing as, you always learn through listening, or you're a kinesthetic learner, okay? Yes, you might like that type of learning, but it's not a style. It's not something you use every day. But what we're seeing is it coming back into the literature because generative AI has read it, and it's read it a lot. It's only recently they go, no, it's not true. It hasn't read that bit, because the models have really already reinforced that information. So this is the information that's being spit out to you. And so when we start framing AI as the expert, as the friend, we're starting to reinforce, okay, this idea that AI knows, that it's going to give you good advice, that it has and understands what it needs. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're starting to see a really concerning element of where chatbots are designed around well-being and helping children and adults to navigate that well-being space. How are we vetting this information? How are we making sure that this information is correct? Same with education and using chatbots as experts. How are we making sure that the information that's presented to these children, okay, that is correct? If we're just taking ChatGPT and we're putting a sort of wrapper around it and say, here is your maths tutor, here is your writing tutor, how are we making sure that the data that comes out and is not misleading, okay? So we need to be critical. So I wrote a point in the conversation around, especially around, it was a time where Judith Collins were coming out and saying, we need an AI tutor for every student. Lovely soundbite, really cool. But how do we do that? How do we do this in New Zealand? Okay, because we need, one of the points that, a lot of people are talking about, we need something in New Zealand because we have unique bicultural needs. But whose information is going into the system? How are we curating that information? How are we vetting the information? Whose knowledge sits in here? If you're talking about Indigenous knowledge, there's huge issues around that. And it can't be commercialised, it can't be commodified. There's whole issues around data sovereignty when you're talking about this. It's not just something we can create. We need to think about it. So literacy, where that sits, is allowing us to, first of all, discern, be discerning, be critical about the information. But equally, if we know we've been critical about it, we can start engaging with it to give us better results. Because we know that generative AI, those large language models, are designed and trained on Western, mainly Western information. It relates to a very certain amount of specific population. Minority voice is not there. So how do we engage with it where we are discerning? So one of the ways that we could, for example, engage with photos and create photos is being deliberate about adding the diversity into there. Okay? So where you have, the prompt is not just create me an image. I did do that one for that one. But can you see any diversity in this one? Any issues with this one? Looks good. Yeah, we've got race, diversity, but not gender. Yep. My nurse and my midwife are both women. Though, having said that, that's fairly representative. Okay? Is that a problem? We're reflecting reality here to a certain degree. Okay? So it becomes all this point is like, how much are you manipulating the output just to get your diversity? That's a whole new conversation and a whole new lecture that I'll have. But what we need to do is be thinking about these implications when we're using AI. So if we're just getting, for example, in the teaching context, and we're asking ChatGPT to give us a lesson plan that accounts for diversity of learners, the different learning needs, it only knows that definition, that approach. Okay, we need to then take our education hats to look at it and critique it. So, this idea that AI is going to replace educators, we still need the educator. We still need the expert in the room. We still need the AI expert to help us with this space. Your domain of knowledge is still valid because you have to discern. You have to critique it. If you don't have any of that understanding, like my son, who just changes ChatGPT's wording, he's not vetting that information. Okay. Okay? We have to teach that. So what we're seeing is this idea that AI is becoming the silver bullet to things. It's to solve everything. And so we get this proliferation of educational tools and resources. We need to be, as educators, starting to be quite critical about which tools we adopt. Okay? What are the implications of adopting? AI is pervasive. If you let it loose in your organisation, what is it consuming? What data is it accessing? Okay. Equally, it's a good thing. If you can have a system which sits inside your organisation where the data stays in, you're looking after it. Okay. But how reliable is the outcome? Are we being consumed by AI, or are we consuming it? Are we using it? And so these are the critical questions we need to start asking when we start seeing AI as a tool, a technology, not a concept that we have to engage in, a literacy, an understanding. Because without literacy, we become at the mercy of AI. And so this is my point that I had earlier about detecting AI writing. So this is a LinkedIn post by the CEO of ChatGPT Zero. So anyone heard of ChatGPT Zero? Yes. What does ChatGPT Zero do?
AI detector.
Yes, AI writing detector. So what you do is you upload your student, or you as a student upload your writing, and it will give you a percentage of, is this AI writing or not? So Edward Tian is very happy with himself. He has made millions of dollars. As he says, he's the growth puts us in the top 99.9 of startups. Okay. He is selling a tool that doesn't work. AI detectors don't reliably work. So yes, they can tell you, possibly, that it's AI writing, but it doesn't know. Because, as I mentioned before, AI writing is trained on human writing. Okay? How do you discern AI writing? And how they discern it's by two main things. So, two things that they generally look for. So, how AI detectors like this are trained is they're not trained like a large language model of lots of data aggregated. What they do is they train on two things. So, they input student human writing and AI writing, and they ask them to compare. So that's how their model works. Okay, this is a very simple version of it, but identify two key things. So it looks at the burstiness of writing. So it's identified through looking at these two examples, or many of these two examples, is that AI writing, it doesn't have burstiness. Human writing does. And when I mean burstiness, it's the length of your sentences. Humans write different lengths, and whereas AI tends to be fairly uniform. Because they know the rules. They know that the syntax of a sentence. You've got the verb, you've got the adjective, or I'm not English, all those type of things. It knows those rules, those syntax elements. Okay, a structure of a good sentence, and it also identifies perplexity. Human writing is perplexing. So it has spelling errors. It has grammar rules. It's also got unexpected words in there. Because as you said, with large language models, they're based on that probability of that word following that word following that word. Okay? So what it does, it says, if that sentence sounds a bit weird, a bit more perplexing, human writing. So what it's identifying in this is the style of the writing, not the substance. It doesn't identify the content. It's not validating the content of that writing. It's just, how does that look? And that's all AI writing detectors do. So the probability or the reliability or the likelihood of it being actually correct is really hard to pinpoint. We've got false errors. Or false negatives is what they talk about. So when we're trying to identify students' AI writing, we say, my Turnitin has identified, a 80% likelihood. It's a likelihood, not true. Okay? And this is the issue we have. We've got the silver bullet idea, but we also sold solutions to our silver bullet. Yes?
I generated 100% from Gemini, and it was coming up with 28%. So it was spotting it in places, but I think, particularly when you're at a private school with parents that are paying a lot of money, you cannot rely on something like that to then challenge the children when you yourself. So yeah, they are not at all
Yeah.
reliable. They will underperform,
Yeah.
which is safe and overperform. Yeah.
Hugely unethical. I mean, it's not just even a private school issue. I mean, if you are talking about, using this in NCA exams, doesn't matter what, what decil's not really a thing anymore, but, what kind of school your child goes to, if we're using it to accuse children and tertiary students and people and adults about this, we want to be true. We want to be accurate. Yes?
Is there also a problem of having a really, I guess, well-written, articulate essay that explains everything very well, so that no misunderstandings can happen to the reader, and getting a false positive?
Yep. And in fact, there's studies proving that especially students that are English is not their first language gets detected and highlighted and accused of AI writing more often with these tools because they know the rules. Us as English natives, we don't care. We don't use the rules. But, learners of the language do. Yes, sorry, some of you do. I'm sure know all the rules and you care. But... so this is the problem that we're seeing in the education. But don't get me wrong, okay? I am not negative about AI. I think AI has huge potential. As I said at the beginning, my child has dyslexia. He is using reader writers. He's using ChatGPT to help him with his learning. Okay, it is a good thing. Assistive technology, a lot of those tools are underpinned by AI. It can help us brainstorm ideas and differentiate learning. It can help us with those low-hanging fruit concepts of writing an email to your students that you really want to be really negative about, but you have to be a bit more positive. So you write it really, you're angry with them, you write it badly, and then you pop it through ChatGPT and say, can you just make this a little bit nicer? Okay, good use of AI, but depersonalize it, obviously. Don't have names and student IDs, okay? But those low-hanging fruits that we don't need, AI is good for. It helps us understand a vast amount of data. It helps us with the learning. It scaffolds us if we're putting it in that right place. It can be a positive, but we have to make sure that we're not using it uncritically. We cannot ban it. That can't be our solution to this issue. So what we see in schools where they are saying, assessments, no AI. Don't want you to use AI. We're abandoning take-home assessments because I can't guarantee that you didn't do it. Okay? Why are we doing this? We've got Victoria University with exams that are handwritten. Okay? Because we are terrified that they're using AI. I'm not critiquing that. That's fine. AI doesn't have to sit in everything. But there's this idea of the Goldilocks effect, and this is something I wrote about in the Times New Higher Education, is that, like Goldilocks, when is it just right? When is it too hot, too cold? When is it just right? And we have no solutions yet. So I stand in front of you with no solutions of what just right looks like. Sorry, okay? But this is the thing when we're talking about education. It's about how do we navigate the space that looks different day to day. Technology is increasingly moving quite quickly. And time is also. So that's why I'm speeding up a bit. But I just want to finish up in the last 5 minutes. It's just talking a little bit about the literacy framework that I created. So as I said, I don't have any answers for you in education. It's a changing space. How we use it, when we don't use it, when we use it, is complex. It's contextual, okay? But what we need to have is a foundation of literacy to make those decisions. So this is what we created. We created this scaffolded literacy framework. It was a Delphi study, so we got experts that were from education and AI and practitioners in the field to help us understand what is the literacy that we need to see. And what we came up with is that it's not one-dimensional. AI literacy is not equal for everyone. The computer scientists need different AI literacy, but equally, everyone needs a foundation, level 1. Everyone needs that. But how you teach it and ways that you teach it are different. So we created a literacy framework that applies to everyone. But what you need to do is you are moving through the levels. So where you have a knowing and understanding as level 1, and then move into this use and applying and critiquing and evaluating to what we say is beyond literacy, which sits in the computer science space. Those people that are going to create these systems. We saw it as 3 key areas that we need to build in everyone. Everyone needs an understanding of AI concepts. Those terms that I talked about, machine learning, what is AI, what isn't AI? Training models. Some of the lingo that we need to have an understanding to be able to converse and understand what's happening underneath the hood of these tools. We need to have application skills to be able to use these tools. We don't build AI literacy from just giving students tools. We don't just give them ChatGPT and expect them to build literacy. We have to build it with the concepts and equally the citizenship that sits in there. So AI literacy and tools can be a first step, but we need to move beyond just saying, yes, my students use, ChatGPT in their assignments. I've built it in. If we're not purposely teaching them how to use it appropriately, we've got the issue. So the key concepts of this framework is this idea that we all need this foundational level of literacy, any age. How we do that is contextual. So what it means in different disciplines and domains is different. It's different from your, health science, from your educators. But everyone needs concepts, technical skills, and digital citizenship. And digital citizenship goes beyond this idea of just ethics. You have to be a citizen in this space. You have to be not just being immersed in using AI, but actually push back as well, okay? It sits inside this idea of digital literacy. It's one of the many literacies that we talk about, but it's part of using AI effectively. It's not a soloed concept, it's pervasive. So if you're a teacher in schools, AI literacy doesn't sit in the digital technologies curriculum and that's it, forgotten. It has to sit in the English language curriculum. It needs to sit in the sciences because that's when you start to use AI tools as well. You're going to be engaging in these ideas. So it has to sit across whatever we're looking at, whatever subjects you teach. So, all right, I managed it. Last slide, okay? AI literacy needs to sit across the curriculum. It can't be siloed, okay? It's not a tech issue. It's a societal issue. It's not just coding, okay? So, yes, you can have coding inside this, but it's a bigger picture. It's literacy. It needs to be cross-curricular or interrelated because it builds deeper understanding. It needs to be applied. It's not a subject concept that we teach in isolation because it affects us across. Equally, everyone needs it. All teachers, all students, people in society need this. We need to start early and we need to scaffold. Children today are engaging with AI. We have smart speakers in their rooms. We have AI teddies, okay, that we give them. We have them playing on YouTube. The concepts of AI can be taught in early childhood. We need to have this for equity. We need to teach it for everyone because if you don't teach AI literacy, we have unequal approaches. And this is where those poor students get caught out around academic integrity because they don't know enough to use AI properly not to be detected. Because those ones I can guarantee that are getting away with it because they can do it well. All the ones you're marking if you're a teacher, okay, probably there's some AI in it. We can't just pretend that there's no AI just because we can't detect it. It's the ones that do badly will get it, all right? And so we need to start preparing our students for the world that we live in, a digital society that is pervasive around AI. Okay, thank you.